Our topic now will be representational state transfer, that is REST. So we'll go with the example 7th. So here we'll develop a weather website using REST API in JavaScript, and we use CSS grid for positioning the elements. So now let's see what is representational state transfer, that is REST, and how does it work. So REST is an architectural style that defines a set of constraints to be used for creating web services. REST API is a way of accessing web services in a simple and flexible way without having any processing. All communication done via REST API uses only HTTP request. So for example, if you open any website, for example, let us take the most widely used Facebook. So once you log in and send the request to the server, so your browser what it gets from the server, that will be displayed first. So that is the thing. So now let's see how the REST works. As I told you, a request is sent from client to server in the form of web URL as HTTP GET, put, etc. So after that, a response comes back from the server in the form of a resource, which can be anything like your HTML, XML, image, or JSON. But now JSON is the most popular format being used in web services. Now the code which I am going to show you will be explained in detail with the entire syntax with one of my student.
Hello there, and I'm going to be explaining the remaining experiment. Let's see. Let's open the empty folder in the VS Code right now. Here we go, and let's create our new file. So the first file we'll be needing is index.html. You can name it anything either way, that it should just end with .html. So I'm going to name it index.html, and I will write our boiler code here. The starting code that we are going to use. Now we are going to need script here, so I am going to use an external script just for better understanding. That is our JavaScript index.js. You can name it anything again, that's the same naming policy except the fact that the ending should be .js. Now let's our script enter to our HTML, and I will point it to index.js. Okay, let's see that our files are created here. I will open the browser right now. Okay, the browser is empty because we have nothing to show here. We did not write anything. For example, if I write h1 test, it will definitely appear here. Okay, let's move on. Now what we let's style everything later. Let's now write the script for implementing the weather application. I mean, we have to get the weather from the API, and we'll search for the API online, and there are many APIs. We'll search the one with no keys required. Okay, right now without styling, let's write something like h1 will write today's weather, and in h2 we'll write temperature, and I will write a span element here because we want to write our temperature here. Right now just write it 30C. That's similar to saying that it's 30 degrees Celsius. So instead of this we'll be writing something else, so we'll be adding that with JavaScript. So let me give this a class name so that I can access this span element through JavaScript. So I will give this a span name of temperature with a small t, or you can also use the capital T, it doesn't really matter. Now let's see if the script is actually linked. I will just log it here. Hi. Now let's reload it, and I will open the console here. You can open the console here using the inspect, or you can also use F12 as well, no problem. Let's open this, and then on our console we have got hi. So if I change this to AST, then we have got AST. Okay, so we know that our script is linked to the browser, to the HTML document, and we are able to write HTML and reflect it on the browser. So let's continue with our experiment. Now in this experiment, what we are going to do is we are going to get the we are going to get the temperature from an REST API. So the API which we'll be choosing, let's search for it. So we want a weather API with no API is required. Let's search for it. Okay, there is one called as Open Meteo. Let's see to it. Okay, let's see the documentations. Okay. Okay, so we have got API link here. Let's just copy the link here, and we have different parameters. So for example, we'll get our hourly temperature and daily temperature and current weather and etc. So what we require here is current weather. Before that, let's see what we are getting after we open this link on the browser. Okay, so this is our JSON data. So we are getting this JSON data for this particular latitude 52.52 and this particular longitude 13.41, and there's a parameter here called as hourly is equal to temperature 2m. So instead of hourly is equal to temperature 2m, we want to use a parameter called as current weather. Okay, so we have copied the current weather and we are going to use this parameter instead of hourly is equal to 2m. So current weather, whether it's the starting of the another parameter. Now these are all parameters exactly. The parameters are written after a question mark. So latitude is one parameter, longitude is another parameter. So in order to separate those parameters, you are using an AND. So we need a current weather is equal to what are the values right now. So we are getting from the API documentation that the default value is going to be false. So instead of false, we are going to use true because we need current weather with response to the API. So we'll make it true, and what we get is the current temperature of this particular latitude and longitude. We can see here we got time, wind directions, wind speed, and the main thing that we are going to use is the temperature, which is given as 6.8 right now. I know that 6.8 sounds like really cold, but that is for this particular latitude and longitude. Let's see what we get. What temperature do we get for our Kalburgi, for example? I will app Google Maps for this. Okay, so this is our Google Maps. So this is actually Kalburgi right now, and the temperature, latitude and longitude is given here. That is this particular latitude and this particular longitude. So let's copy this from here. So I have copied the latitude and I will replace this instead of 52.52, which I don't know which place is it, and I will copy the longitude from here. Okay, I have copied the longitude and I will replace this with 13.41. Instead of 13.41, we are using the current latitude and longitude, and when I press enter, I get the temperature of 30.5 degrees, which is quite correct according to where we live, that is in Kalburgi. Okay, let me close this. This was just an example. So we are going to use this particular API. Let me copy this string. Now how am I going to get this data in my JavaScript? The question is this. So what we are doing here is we are writing an API link here. This is actually an API link. So you have to know the fundamentals of browser. Now if you open some website, let it be any website, the first thing that happens is that the website, our browser sends a get request to that particular URL. The same thing is happening here. This our browser is sending a get request to this particular API and we are getting this particular response. So this is a JSON data. So we are going to do the same thing in our JavaScript. Now how do we actually know this is an REST API? So I guess you will be learning this in your next year, that is in 6th semester maybe. That's a subject called as web services. So either way I will just explain it in brief. Though the search parameters inside a REST API are always in the URL. For example, here The latitude is a search parameter, the longitude is a search parameter. These search parameters, if they reside in the URL here, so it's an indication that it's a REST API, and the REST API always returns JSON data. Okay, enough with the explanation. I guess we'll just move to the script here. So what we are going to do is, now in case of the browser, we have got the latitude and longitude from our Google Maps. So that is using the Google Map, but we want this latitude or longitude, or the latitude or longitude that we are currently in the JavaScript. This can be done through the API provided by the browser, that is called as Navigator API. It's a built-in API for each and every browser. Let's try to use it. So Navigator API can be called using Navigator method that is already inbuilt in JavaScript. We want the current location. So for current location, we'll be writing navigator dot geolocation dot get current position. So this particular get position current position method accepts two things, that is success callback and error callback. Now just to brief it up, callbacks are nothing but the functions that are passed as a parameter to a method. Now basically like throwing function as an argument to another function. So that is what we are going to do. So here we have seen that there's a success callback, there's an error callback. Now what is it? The success will actually have, when we call this API and we reload our browser, this particular browser, we get a request say for getting your current location. So that depends. If you accept the request, then the success callback will be called, and if you reject that request, then the error callback will be called. Now just for testing, let's make our callbacks. So I will be writing JavaScript functions here. We write it this way. We write function success, so you can name it anything, doesn't really matter. Now in case of success, we get a parameter called as location, which will have our current location. In case that is the success, we accept the request from the browser. Now I will soon show what's the request. For now, let me just log the location, and similarly I'm going to make error or callback as well. This does not need to require, we don't require any argument here, because we know that user has already rejected the request. So here instead of console.log, let me do this. I will just alert it saying we definitely require the location, your location. We definitely require your location for getting. That's a good alert, I guess, not so bad. We will pass the functions right now. So this is a success function, this is an error function. So let's see what happens if I reload the browser. Okay, so I did one stupid thing. We are using external script here, and I am writing these things here. I shouldn't be writing these things here. So this is the index.js. We'll take our code from there and we'll paste it here. That's okay. I was actually writing in between as if that was not an external script. That's my mistake. Let's see what happens if I reload it. We get the request. So this is saying this file wants, so if you are hosting it anywhere, it will say this particular URL wants to know your location. So what we are going to do, if I accept it, if I say allow, then this particular function will run, and if I say block, this particular function will run. Let me first block it, and what we are expecting here is, if I block it here, I get an alert saying we definitely require your location for getting weather. Let's see. I blocked it, and yes, we have got an alert saying we definitely require your location for getting weather. English typo. Okay. Now if I reload it again, we get that particular request again. Now I will allow it. Now after I allow, I expect this location or parameter here. Let me open my console here. Yep, we have got a geolocation position, which is this particular location. If I open this, we have two keys. one key is named as chords and another key is named as timestamp, and inside the chords object we have accuracy and etc, but the main thing is latitude and longitude. So this is my current position right now. Okay, now I am going to use this current position. I will get this current position. So const latitude is equal to, what is the latitude? Location dot, so location is actually this particular whole object. So location dot, we have two keys, chords or timestamp. We need chords. Location dot, okay, chords dot. Now inside of chords what we want is latitude and longitude. For now we are storing that in latitude, so we'll write a dot latitude here. Yep, similarly we want the longitude. Location dot chords dot. Yep, now let's log these two things on our console now. Console dot log latitude and our longitude. Okay, let me refresh this right now and I get the request, I allow it, and I get my latitude and longitude. Now we are going to use this particular latitude and longitude in order to make an API call. So how exactly are we going to make an API call in our browser? There are multiple methods, but the one that is widely used is the fetch method. So how we are going to use fetch method is, we are going to write fetch and we have to provide an API link here. So we have got our API link here. Yep, I will just copy this API link here and I will paste it here. So this is my API link right now, but this API link gets whether for this particular latitude and longitude. So I don't want to use this particular latitude and longitude, but the latitude and longitude provided by my browser. So for that I am going to use the string literals instead of string. So this is how you use the string literals. Now if you don't know what this is, it is actually present in your tilde key on your keyboard, which is above the left tab. Either way there's only one tab, I guess. So it is this particular key is above the tab key on your keyboard. You can use that in order to write this particular thing, and we are going to write our URL here. So we want to replace this particular part with the latitude that we have got. So I will just remove this numbers, that is the latitude provided by Google Maps previously. So in order to include that thing, we use dollar and a bracket open and bracket close. Now this expects an variable or anything, so I will just paste this latitude here. So okay, right, so we have latitude here. So the latitude provided by the browser will be written over here because of string literals. Now let me replace this thing as well, dollar bracket open bracket close, and here we'll get our longitude. Now the API call will be made as soon as the function, the execution comes to the fetch. But I will not go very much deeper, but the fetch API is asynchronous, saying that this does not wait for execution to complete before going to the next line. For example, if I write console.log test here, so if I run this on the browser, the fetch API will be called, but before as it is being called, the next line will be executed. So this particular method does not wait for the API for getting a response from the API in order to go to the next line. It just goes as soon as this method is called. It does not wait actually. Let me delete this. Now that is why we want, for example, we cannot store this in a variable called as, for example, test is equal to. So what we expect is if we get a return from a response from the API, this particular API, it will be stored in test. But that now does not happen because we are not getting this response from the server as soon as we make a call. It takes some time to get a response from the server. So for that we are going to use a .then method. So what this this method will run as soon as the API call is made and the response is actually received from the server. So this particular method will be called as soon as we get the response. Okay, so we get a response here. Let me write a function here. It accepts a function. This particular function will get a response, and we are going to return that response because we want a response in JSON format. So we are going to write a response.json. So what happens here is that we will receive a response here that will actually be a promise, but will not go will not go deep inside that. So this particular API call will return a promise, and we are going to take that response, and we are going to say that we actually need that response in a JSON format. And this will this particular return after this particular return, we are going to link another then method, because this will also take time. This is also an asynchronous task, and after we get that response, we'll get the data here inside this function. So if I log this, yes, so we are saying we make an API call, we get a response, then we are saying we want the response in the JSON format, and at the end, after all this process, we are getting our data here. So let me reload this here, let me allow this here. It will take some time, and after some time we'll get the console.log data here. Okay, we have got a response here saying that latitude, longitude, generation time, etc. Inside the object we have also got the current weather, the temperature, time, and etc. And we are going to use this data, and we are actually going to use this temperature data in order to display the temperature here. So let's do that. So after getting the data here, and we are going to get our temperature here. We are going to store the temperature in the temperature variable. So data dot, so inside the data object there is current weather, current weather, current weather, data dot current weather, and inside current weather we have our temperature dot temperature, right? Why am I saying this? Console.log, and we are going to log to see if the temperature is correct. Let's reload our browser and let's allow it. Yep, we have got our temperature 30.5 degree. Now we are going to select this span element, and we are going to write this temperature as inner HTML. We have to select using this class temperature. So in order to do that, we have did it over multiple times. We are going to declare our variable called as temp is equal to, you can name it anything, document dot query selector, and the name was dot temperature, I guess. Okay. So we have selected the temperature here, and inside the temperature we want to write this. So we are going to write here mp temp, this particular selected element, that is this span element. So inside this we are going to write temp dot, and we are going to write inner HTML is equal to temperature, right? So let's see if this works. We are going to allow it. Yep, we have got the temperature 30.5, and we can write here after this span we can write C, and we can also write the dollar. Let me see, let me get the degree, degree symbol. I guess I can just copy it from here. Yep, and I will paste it here. You don't need to do this. I'm just doing it because it should look good. And we got our 30.5 degrees Celsius, and this is what we actually wanted. And if I don't allow it, we are getting an alert called as we definitely require your location for getting the weather. Okay, so this actually works. Now if you want to stop here, you can stop and go do your experiment and apply your own styles. But if you don't want to, I highly recommend you apply your own styles. But if you want to see how I actually apply these styles, then you can go ahead and continue watching the video. Okay, let's now work on the styles part. I will just write the styles here. Now this is the script. Style, and inside the style, let's see how I can style this. Okay, let's now apply our own styles. We are going to do, let's apply a style to the body first. We want our body to be, background of the body to be black. So, do okay, and we got a little grayish black here, and later we'll leave it as a black here, the color of the text as black here, because we are going to apply the white background to this with box shadows. For that, let's make a class called as weather, and we'll wrap the both h1 and h2 inside that weather div with class weather, so that we can apply separate styles to this. We are going to use weather, and we are going to give background color of FFF, and let's see, yep, it has got the background color. And now we want to center this div here in between. So do that. Let's make it display grid. You can also use a flex, doesn't matter. And we are going to use justify center and align items center, and let's see what happens. Yep, this came in between. And also, if you are wondering why we are not getting the weather here, because I have commented the navigator that dot geolocation part, because whenever I refresh it's requesting the permission for just some time. Let us ignore that. And okay, so this has got this. Then to the weather div we are going to apply padding, let's say 10 pixel, and see how it looks. Yep, a little more, I guess. 20 pixel doesn't look bad. Yep, okay. So we are not going to do some complex styling job here. Let's do an easy and simple job here. And later we are going to use this SVG. You can use your own image. SVG doesn't really matter. Right now for this part, let's use SVG. And using SVG is quite simple. It's similar to using image with a source, I guess. Okay, src is equal to, and I will paste that SVG's link here. Let's see what happens here now. Yep, we have got our SVG here, and we'll just write the temperature here instead of all these things. And I will remove this H2 here. I will just leave the span and degree Celsius element here, and let's see how it looks. Okay, not so bad. Let's write a dummy temperature here just for styling purpose. I will write it as 30 degrees Celsius. Now I want this temperature to be a little bigger. That is, the font size must be a little bigger. For that, I am going to select the temperature. So if I choose only temperature, only this 30 will be bigger, so degree Celsius will not be big. For that, we'll just wrap this span as well as degree Celsius into paragraph. That is totally okay. And to that particular paragraph, I'll just use p tag, because there are no other p tags to which the styles can collide. So I will give it a font size of maybe the 16 is quite regular, so I want it big. 20, no, maybe 40, I guess. Yep, this looks actually good. And okay, this is complete. And what we can do now is that we are going to remove the default margin. That is, by default these elements, div, paragraph, etc., have their own default margins. So for example, if I go into the inspector and if I click on this particular element and go to paragraph, here you can see the orange or yellowish color here, which shows the margin. You can also see here below that there's a margin, default margin of 40 pixels here, that we don't actually require. That's why I'm going to remove that margin using the same selector by giving margin 0. This will totally remove the margin. Yep, this actually looks good. Now let's try to center this particular image. So we are going to center this particular. To do that, we are going to use a flex box on the weather div. So we are going to use display flex, and if I do that, both will be aside as well. For that, I want the flex direction to be column. uh, okay, so this will make them one above another, and I want to center this thing. I guess it's already centered a bit. Okay, but we can also center it more little bit, because it's taking its default heights. So that is why I'm going to choose the img tag, and I'm going to apply justify self to center. Later this what this does is actually it centers the image in between. So right now let me refresh this. You can. Okay, so it's still not centered because we have used align self, which actually when used flexible direction as column, the justify self aligns it vertically, but we want to align it horizontally, so it must be align self center. Okay, this is actually centered quite good, and that's okay, I guess. We can do some more things, like adding a box to shadow to this weather. In order to make a shadow, we can do something like box shadow 2 pixel, 2 pixel, 4 pixel. You don't actually need to worry about all these things. This will actually add something like blur effect to this. We can also use other colors such as black. That's totally okay. You can't see this right now, but if you see it on your own display, you will realize the effect. At the end I just want to say that you don't need to know each and everything about it. I recommend reading books, watching more tutorials on HTML and CSS. If you are really interested in web development, then you can go through it. You can learn all these things and even more if you are interested in the field. And let's now change it back, change the navigation back, and I will remove this 30 over here, and I will get, now it will ask the location permission. Now if I click on reload, I get request modal here. I will accept it, and later we will get a temperature, which is our Kalburgi's temperature right now. Thank you.